Hello, my name is Danny, and I am here with a video on how to install Clip Studio Paint in Linux using Wine with full asset store support. For today's video, I'm going to be using Bazite. I don't daily drive Bazite, I daily drive Arch, but a lot of people are switching to Bazite, so I figured I'd do it in a distro that's user-friendly and not as easy to goof up. Not that you can really mess up your system doing this, but to get started, we will need a tool to help us. That tool is a tool called Bottles. So you can click on the Bazaar, and we can say Bottles, and you'll see it here, Bottles. And we can go ahead and click Install. It will install Bottles. While that installs, I'll explain what Bottles is. Bottles is a graphical front end to Wine. Wine being a translation layer that can translate Windows native calls into Linux native calls. So we can go ahead, Bottles is installed. We can click Open. This will bring up the Bottles interface. You're going to get a little helpful little, welcome to Bottles, run Windows software on Linux, Windows in a bottle. Bottles uses compatibility runners to provide isolated, containerized Windows-like environments where programs run. What this means is essentially each bottle you create is an isolated environment, and any applications you install into that bottle are separate from any other bottle and from your just main default Wine configuration. And we're gonna say, okay, continue. It's gonna download some important things. So we're gonna let it do that. And we're done. That's all pretty quick. I did not make a cut there or an edit. We can go ahead and click on the Bottles tab, and we are gonna create a new bottle. We're gonna give it a name. We are going to leave we're going to leave it as an application. Give it a name that makes sense to you. I did this because we're leaving Windows behind. It's 2026. We don't need whatever Windows is doing. And as a runner, we're going to want to choose syswine 10. We don't want to use soda for this. We want syswine 10. You can leave the bottle directory as the default. Go ahead and hit create. This is going to generate a new bottle for us. This can take a minute or two. For the most part, Clip Studio Paint works really well under Wine. I don't notice a performance hit between when I was running Clip Studio on Windows and now that I'm running it on Linux. I'll disclaimer this by saying, Wine is a translation between Windows native API calls and Linux native API calls. There is probably a performance hit from that, but I don't know that you're going to notice it under most cases. If you were maybe on a computer that was barely running Clip Studio before, you might see some degradation, but I really have not noticed any. Additionally, that disclaimer also applies to any weird things that may happen. There are a couple of effects that do not work in Clip Studio Paint running under Wine. Those are all detailed on a great resource, which I will show you while we wait for this creation. A lot of your questions can and will be answered on the Wine HQ page for the application you're installing. So in this case, we're installing Clip Studio Paint version 4.10. And you can see here, there's test results, what works, well, just about everything. This person's using an XP Pen tablet. I have an XP Pen tablet. It works. Generally, Wine HQ is a great resource if you're installing an application under Wine. In fact, the instructions that I'm running are basically these instructions. I've got them on the side screen there, and I've rewritten them into my own words, but this is what I did to get it working on my setup, and so you can also follow these instructions. I'll put a link to these down in the description of the video. Okay, let's check our bottle. Hey, our bottle's done. I think it actually finished before I even got that website open, but So we have our bottle now. So long, Windows, and thanks for all the fish. We can click into that. And we're going to want to just check a couple of things before we get started. We are going to want to confirm that settings that we have DXVK and VKD3D, these should be on by default. They're on by default, so we want those. Those are the things that translate DirectX 3D calls into Vulkan calls for Linux. Essentially translating Microsoft's proprietary graphics API into the open source Vulkan API calls. And then we want to, down in Legacy Wine Tools, click this configuration button, and we just want to make sure that our default Windows version is Windows 10. Okay, we've checked that. So, next, we're going to install the prerequisites for Clip Studio Paint. There are two prerequisites for Clip Studio Paint. Microsoft Edge and the Microsoft Edge Web Viewer. You can find a link to both of those in the WineHQ instructions. I will also put links to them in the description of the video. Microsoft Edge for Windows is just the Microsoft Edge for Windows. You can just get this by Googling Microsoft Edge and downloading the Windows version. You don't want the Linux version, you do want the Windows version. And then the Microsoft Edge Web View, this is the one that catches up people. It's a specific version 135.0.3179.85. No idea what that means, but that's the one that you need. This link will download it directly. I already have it downloaded, so we won't waste any time there. So, to install those dependencies, you can go ahead and click Run Executable. Bottle is running in a sandbox. Restricted progression environment. Okay, I think that's just a generic warning. I have it downloaded here, so we're going to grab Microsoft Edge, and we're going to say Run. You can see, because I'm doing this completely from scratch, you can see exactly like what... You can see kind of how far Linux has come. It explained pretty much everything there in simple terms. You don't need to know all of the details, but it explained what a bottle is, why it's useful. It warned you that, hey, you're running in a sandboxed environment. Which a sandbox is just a, it's a computing term for, put this thing in the sandbox. It's fine to do whatever, it can dig and destroy whatever it wants in the sandbox, but it can't get out of the box. So, that's it explains the sandbox. We're installing Microsoft Edge. We're almost done with that. So Linux has come a long way in terms of usability. I know that the command line interface can be quite intimidating for new Linux users, but really, we're getting to a point where you don't need it. Okay, it's opened up Microsoft Edge, that's why the screen went black, and then Microsoft Edge crashed. That's normal. That's fine. We don't actually need to run Microsoft Edge basically ever. But that is now done, and we can run our next prerequisite. Our next prerequisite is that Microsoft Edge Web View. So we can select that and click Run. And again, this will just run the installer and install it into our bottle. But yeah, Linux has come a long way for usability. That command line interface can be very intimidating for a lot of new Linux users. Less and less, there are more and more good options for avoiding that. I am an advocate for the command line. I wasn't always, but after using it for a little while and getting used to it, it is just a very clean and efficient way to work. If that's not your deal, if you don't care, you just want the graphical thing, there are good options for you now. There were not always. Basically everything I'm going to do here is going to be with a UI. And in my opinion, a not bad looking UI, except for Microsoft Edge's ugliness. Like, any ugliness will just be the default installer view for Microsoft programs. Alright, so we've installed the web view, we've installed MS Edge, and we're going to now install Clip Studio Paint itself. go ahead and select Clip Studio Paint. This is CSP 4.10, and we can go ahead and say run. This is just your regular Clip Studio Paint install wizard. You're going to follow along with it. Next. I accept the terms. Next. We're going to install this into C program file Celsius. I'll take a minute at the end of the video to sort of show you what that actually looks like on your Linux system and inside of your bottle. And go ahead and click install. And this is going to run. So really, really Linux has come a long way in terms of usability and user friendliness, while still maintaining that command line interface. Like the command line is there. I encourage people to try it because, frankly, it's really good. Instead of having to navigate through a website, download an installer, run the installer, click through the same 5 prompts on every installer that you do, you can just execute my package manager, get me my package, and it'll just do everything for you. Bazite is good because it, is more on the rails. It's going to be very hard for you to, do that joke that's, the Linux joke of rm-r/ where you delete your entire drive. Like, Bazite will just not let you do that. For a lot of people, that's really good. For power users, it's annoying. So if you're already if you're a power user, you don't need this video. So, okay, we've finished our Clip Studio Paint install. So we can hit finish. I'm gonna quickly back out here and click back in. And now you can see there's a Clip Studio entry in the programs list. So, before we can do that, we have to do a little bit of setup. So, you're gonna need to come down to Tools, Legacy Wine Tools, and Configuration. This step is important, do not skip it. We're going to click the Add Application button. We're gonna go into Program Files 86, Microsoft, Edge Web View, Application. There's that version number that I mentioned earlier. And we're going to select MS Edge View Web View 2. And we're going to click Open. Now, you can see down here it says Windows version. We're going to switch that from global settings to Windows 7, I believe. Let me check. Yep, Windows 7. And then additionally, we're going to want to add another application. This one's going to be in Program Files, Celsius, Clip Studio Paint, and then the Clip Studio Paint.exe. Select that as well. And we are going to change this to Windows 8.1. Not sure exactly the reason for that, but if you try and use Windows 10 or Windows 11, it just breaks. So we set it to Windows 8.1. The web view needs to be Windows 7, Clip Studio Paint 8.1. And the default, leave it at Windows 10. Okay, so that's done. We can say OK. And that's pretty much it. We're done. Clip Studio is installed. You may find it handy to put Clip Studio Paint right in this programs list, so I'll show you how to do that really quick. Add shortcut, Drive C. So let's actually take a minute to talk about this file layout. So you can see up here this path. Doesn't super matter, but you can see your bottle name here. And inside of that is a folder called Drive C. That is your Windows C drive. That's what the application running thinks is the root of your hard drive in Windows. And then you get your normal stuff, your program files. So in here, program files, Celsius, Clip Studio 1.5, Clip Studio Paint. And we can grab this exe and we can click add, and this will put that into the list of programs in the bottle. But what I mentioned before, the sandboxing, this is kind of what it meant. You have a var folder in your home directory that has an app folder where the bottle's flat pack is set up. And then inside of that, there's data. The bottles ignore the double bottles there, but, and then the bottle that you're working in, and then your C drive. You know, if you do this under, you know, just vanilla wine or using wine GUI, this path will vary depending on how you do it. This isn't how mine looks on my computer, but this is what the sandboxed environment looks like. So as far as, you know, where your files are going to sit, they're going to sit in users, your username, and then, you know, pictures, wherever. So like when you save something in Clip Studio Paint, it'll end up in here. There are some tricks you can do to make them save in your, you know, regular Linux pictures folder or whatever, but you can just organize everything in here. So let's go back and stick that application into the list. We'll go right into Clip Studio Paint just to show that Clip Studio Paint is working. So we get started with Clip Studio Paint. I'm gonna say just try it out because I'm not gonna put my license information into this. We can close that. I don't know why it says we're offline. You're gonna get this OS is not supported. That's fine. Just close it. And yep, here you have Clip Studio Paint. You can draw. If you have a drawing tablet, there's one thing I will point out to you, which is you are going to want to go into preferences. This one took me a minute to figure out. If your pressure is not working, I believe the setting you want is use mouse mode in tablet driver settings. That will suddenly make your pen pressure work. I can't set up my tablet right now because it's, you know, again, I'm running in a virtual machine. But, you know, you have all of your tools here, and you can draw. You have all of your brushes. Editor Danny here. So I ran into some issues with my VM running out of memory while trying to demo the asset store. So we're just going to demo that on my install of Clip Studio Paint. This is the one I use every day, and the asset store just works. So you should not see any difference if you follow these instructions between what I'm about to show and what you did in your install. I just want to apologize for the cut and make you aware of that's the reason that I did that. So I'm gonna demo my asset store on my install of Clip Studio Paint because my VM was giving me a little bit of trouble. But this would essentially be how it functions. You know, you can come in, you have your whole thing here. You can grab your, you know, Clip Studio login bonus, which I have not been grabbing. And everything pretty much just works the way you'd expect. Sometimes the pages take a little bit long to load, but let's go maybe grab another asset here. Like in this case, the page just looks a little funny, but a refresh or two should solve that. Here we go. We've refreshed the page enough that it finally renders. And hey, look, we can download, and the material has been downloaded. And you know, everything just sort of works. Sometimes it's a little slow, sometimes it's a little glitchy, but your asset store works. You can download your materials, and then you can just begin drawing. So I hope this was helpful. You know, if you found it useful, toss a like on the video, share it with your friends. But I hope this was helpful in getting people set up with their, you know, familiar tool sets in Linux. There are, of course, you know, open source alternatives that work great, but people get used to their workflows, and why should that be the reason you're stuck dealing with, like I said, whatever Microsoft is shipping these days? So thanks for watching, everybody.